Hi everyone, thank you for watching this video. Okay, now for today's lesson, right, I'll be going through the 4NA TYS 2021 paper 1. Right, before you begin your N-level exam, please make sure you redo this paper. I repeat again, redo the paper, not just read through the solutions, but do the questions again. Now, without further ado, I should begin to explain some of the slightly more newer trend questions or the more complicated questions. All right, so the first few questions, this one here, should not be much of a problem. You should be able to know how to do. So I'll leave it for you to go through on your own. Okay, I just go through question 4 on inequalities a little bit again, because some of you are still a little bit weak in that. Okay, for this equation, this inequality down here, question says find the greatest integer value of y that satisfy the following equation. So first thing that we need to do, if I want to make get y my subject, right, to get y equals to something, but this one now is an inequality, I can treat it like an equation, but there are a few rules to remember. When I add or subtract number, the inequality sign does not change. Okay, when I add or subtract numbers, the inequality sign does not change. Then what happens if I divide with a negative number or multiply with a negative number, right? When I divide or multiply with a negative number, then my inequality sign will change the direction. So in this case, if I want to get rid of negative for the 4y over here, okay, and then I'll change it into, to bring it over to the other side, what will happen if I'm dividing by a negative number? My inequality sign will change, okay? And then I divide by 4, right? Then the sign does not change. So if I divide or multiply by any negative number, the direction of the inequality sign will change. So what does this mean? This means that y is a number smaller, an integer smaller than negative 2.5. So if I have an integer that's smaller than negative 2.5, remember your numbers, right? This is your number line over here, right? It goes in this direction. You notice for the number line, right? There's no X. A number line only have numbers at the bottom. Okay, so it goes from small to big number. So if you are not very sure what are the numbers, then you put 0. 0 should be on the right hand side. So that means all the numbers here, this will be -1, -2, and so on and so forth. All right, so then you can see. Then if the question say is lesser than or greater than, like that, then for the inequality symbol, there are empty circles. But if I have lesser than, equal to, greater than, equal to, this one will have a solid circle. So in this case, this one is lesser than negative 2.5. It will be an empty circle, smaller than, so all the values go in this direction. Right? So the largest integer that satisfies the value of this inequality will be the number -3. Right? During exam, don't be lazy, right? If you think that -2 is the answer, you better check twice again, right? Just draw the inequality line to help you. If you are not able to draw the inequality line, then you list down all the numbers, one by one integer, then you go and think about it. All right? Okay, next question. Okay, this one you should be able to do. Just list down all the different possible combinations. It's a very straightforward, direct questions. Just to mention, this is called a possibility table. Okay, possibility diagram. So it lists down all the different possible outcomes. If the question were to extend and ask you to find the probability of certain cases, then what do you need to do? You just need to count the total number of cases that's available here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the denominator would automatically be 12. Then you count the number of favorable cases. For example, I want the number of cars who are in red with odd number doors. Okay, so I'll look at the red with odd number doors, or this one with odd number door. Red color, odd number, red color, odd number. Right, so in this case, I will have a total of 4 cases. Then you need to simplify the fraction. There will be like that. Okay, so you do not need to do 1 over something times 1 over something times 1 over something and find the different cases. For a possibility diagram, just count the total number of outcomes and then choose the total number of favorable outcomes over each other. Okay, next question. Right, this one is drawing a reduction. Okay, a reduction. Now for this part of the questions, when you have portions that have slopes, right? This one was a slope, right? I will encourage you to draw all the straight edges first before drawing the slope. But if I were to really have the slope, how do I actually count the slope? Okay, this one is a reduction, so scale factor times half becomes smaller. So in this case, when I have a slope, right, I will always look at the horizontal and the diagonal. So if I move horizontally, this will be 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. 1, then down 2. So in this case, this is 4 down 2. So I'll take 4 multiplied by half to give you 2. 2 multiplied by half to give you 1. That means I also move horizontally 1, 2, 2 units horizontally, 1 unit down. Okay, so this is how we draw our slope portion. Okay, if it's a reduction, the scale factor is smaller than 1. So if it's a reduction, the scale factor is smaller than 1. If it's an enlargement, the scale factor will be bigger than 1. However, sometimes the questions can give you a trick in terms of the phrasing. They can also have an enlargement, scale factor, half, for example. If this kind of question, this is actually a trick question because all types of diagrams or can be under an enlargement in name. All right, they may not call it a reduction. So all kinds of transformation can be called an enlargement in this case. And when they give a scale factor half, as long as this scale factor is less than 1, it will definitely be a reduction. But the word says it, they phrase it such that it's an enlargement. Okay, so they are actually trying to confuse you. So whatever you do, follow the scale factor that is given. So if they say scale factor is half, definitely must be a reduction. Okay, it becomes smaller. Don't care whether the words that they use, is it a reduction or an enlargement, right? Next question, this one you should be able to know how to do. Just need to know how to convert the units. Just take note, 1 liter is equals to 1000 ml, also equals to 1000 cm cube. Okay, just a change of the units of the weight. Not a big problem, so I'll leave this question for you to try. Okay, this question is a question that's very standard and you must definitely know how to do, but I still need to go through it. Why? Because some of the students may make careless mistake, right? Now this one, y is inversely proportional. When it's inversely proportional, it means k divide, or rather, for students who know me, I'll write k over something. Okay, k divide or k over something, right? And then now you have to read the word out. It's not just x, it's cube of x. Please read the words. Read the words. Don't just take the x on its own. It's x cubed. So in this case, y equals to k over x cubed. Given that y is equals to 16, so you know a certain number, and x is equals to 2, you also know a certain number, plug it inside my equation. The purpose is to find k. After I find k already, question says, write a formula for y in terms of x. Now, some students may automatically write it as number, 16 equals to 128 over 2 cubed. This is not correct. Why is this not correct? Because the question says they want y in terms of x. If I write it this way, there's no y, there is no x at all. So in this case, this is not the correct answer. What should be the correct answer? It should be y equals to 128, which is the value of k that you have found, and x cube of x, cube of x and x cube. Okay, so this is what you need to take note of. Then after that, you have the equation. You can use it to find the remaining parts of the question. Now, this is a normal standard questions. The ones that are slightly harder is when they don't give you a particular value. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sidetrack a little bit down here for today, is to add on one more subpart of the question. Let's say I do not know the equation, and then I give you that, for example, y is directly proportional to x cube, for example, then it's known that y equals to 10 for a particular value of x. Find the value of x, the value of y, when x is doubled. Okay, this kind of question, last time usually it always, if it comes out, it'll be mostly in paper 2. But then nowadays with the change in syllabus, we do not know what kind of questions can appear. So just to double check, okay, whether you remember how to do this kind of question. So now first step, if y is directly proportional to x cubed, that means y is directly proportional to k times y equals to k times x cubed. They give you that y equals to 10 for a particular value x. So 10 equals to k times, I do not know what is the x, but for that particular value of x. Find the value of y when x is doubled. So y new value, when now what happened? The x is doubled. So instead of x, now it changes to 2x. So y equals to what? Y equals to k times x cubed. So this portion over here, you need to understand it's k times a value of x whole thing cube. Okay, a value of x whole thing cube. This pair of brackets here is important. Okay, it's important because whatever value that you put inside, you need to cube it as well. Okay, so y equals to kx cubed. So what do we know? We know that the x is now changed to 2x. So x has changed to 2x. Okay, so we compare this, the difference between this and without the bracket. So if this is without the bracket, the cube is only for the x itself. You will forget to square the 2, which is not correct already. So in this case, you must make sure you have a bracket. Then this power 3, the cube, right, applies to the number 2 and the x as well. So in this case, you will get k times 2 cube times x cube. 2 cube, which is actually 8. Then x cube over here. Why am I writing it separately in this way? Because you know that k multiplied by x cube is equals to the number 10. K multiplied with x cube, this whole thing is equals to the number 10 times 8. And now the answer will be 80. Okay. So for this kind of question, please take note, make sure you remember how to do it. Okay, so technically the effect is when you have something that is doubled, you times 2, but remember 2 has a cube to it. So technically speaking, the shortcut, you can just take the original value times, they say double, right? So times 2. But then there's a power. This one has an x cube, right? Cube it. Then you also get your answer 10 times 8. So this is the shortcut method. without any much of the working, just understanding of the concept. Okay, with that, I'll move on to the next question. Okay, this question is testing your concept, and there's no fixed answer for question 9, part A. Firstly, what we understand about quadratic graphs in general, there are 3 things we need to know: I, L, and N. I for intercepts. Okay, intercepts can have x-intercept and y-intercepts. All right, so we got a few different intercepts. L for line of symmetry, and M for maximum or minimum point. Okay, when you are not very sure how to get each of the different parts of the answer, go through these 3 processes, then you definitely get either one of the numbers, that the things that they are looking for. Okay, so what is so special about this graph? Number 1, y equals to x squared. If this number over here is a positive x squared, it's a smiley face. Y equals to negative x squared. As long as the x squared is a negative number, it will be a sad face. So one will be a minimum point, one will be a maximum point. Okay, so from here you can understand that this graph here is definitely a happy face. Y equals to positive x squared, which in this case, yes, this number is a positive x squared. The diagram also shows that the sketch is y equals to x squared plus k. What is this plus k? This number is a number, a constant on its own, has no x itself. So this one is actually our y-intercept. Okay, if not, what you can do when you want to find the y-intercept, x is equal to 0, you substitute inside, you notice that, oh, when x becomes 0, y is just left with a number. So this k is actually a y-intercept. Then where's the y-intercept of the curve? There, this is my y-intercept of my curve. And what do we notice? We notice that the y-intercept over here is below our x-axis. So in this case, this one, the y-intercept here is a negative number. Okay, it's a negative number. So if it's a negative number, they just say state a possible value of k. So you can write k to be any negative integer, any or number. K may not be an integer, can be any negative number. You can have negative 2.5, negative 3, negative 100, or negative 80, or can, as long as you write a negative number itself, it will fit the concept of the whole question. Okay. Next question, next part. Okay, this one over here, question says, state the line of symmetry for this quadratic equation. Again, I, L, and M, right? I for my intercepts. First, let us take a look at our x-intercept. Cutting the x-axis, the graph cuts the x-axis at the -1 and 5. So my x-intercept is -1, and x equals to 5. So what do? We need to draw the vertical line of symmetry. Line of symmetry will be when it cuts this curve into half, 2 portions. So I will have it looking like that. Okay, so this one will be my line of symmetry. What is this number? This number is right in the middle of 2 numbers. So how do you find the number in between the 2 numbers? You take the 2 numbers over here, -1 plus 5, add together, divide by 2. But this is just a number. This is not an equation. An equation involves x or y. For vertical lines, that's like that. This is horizontal, this is vertical. For vertical line, it will cut the x-axis. You'll cut the x-axis. So it's always x equals to that number. Okay, x equals to that number, which gives you x equals to 2. All right, so this is the equation for the line of symmetry. Make sure you write x equals 2. If you only write the number 2, it will not be an equation of a line. Okay, extending this concept a little bit, how do we find the y, the maximum or the minimum point? For this case, when we have our line of symmetry, the maximum point will passes through x equals to 2. So x definitely must be 2. So if they give us the equation over here, how do I find the y value? I sub x equals to 2 into equation, whatever equation that you can get, to find the value for y. Okay, so this part of the question you must know how to do. All right, so this question tests us on the concepts I, L, and M. Please remember. Next question over here, this is a rather complicated question, and I wrote quite a number of different concepts for you to read through. Okay, firstly, normally in general, last time the question, right, they give you all with numbers. Nowadays, the questions start to change the style to change it with something with involving algebra to test your understanding of concept. So the reading of the question is very important. There are small details inside the question that you need to know. First thing, we have all these all these values in terms of prime factors. This is my power A over here. And they not only say that this is A, they say A is an integer greater than 4. So A is technically larger than 4. Then the question says find in terms of A. So your expression should have A somewhere. Okay, and they say lowest common multiple of P and Q. To find the lowest common multiple, number one, choose all factors. Number two, choose the one with the highest power. That's why this statement is important, greater than 4. So if I'll choose a power, A will be greater than 4. You just need to take note. Leaving your answer as a product of its prime factors, so now let's find the LCM. First thing, I need to include all the factors. Factors are 2, 3, and 5. So we have 2, 3, and 5. Next thing, look at 2 cubed and 2 to the power of 1. Choose the one with the highest power, so it's 2 cubed. Next thing, 3 to the power of 4 and 3 to the power of 8. Choose the one with the higher power. They already say A is an integer greater than 4. So A is bigger, so choose 3 to the power of A. 5 to the power of 1 and 5 squared, choose the one with the larger power, so 5 squared. And they want the whole answer as a product of its prime factor, so you copy this whole thing into your answer. Okay? Next question. Now part B, normally this kind of question will ask you for find the largest integer, which is a factor of both. When it's a factor of both, the words just say factor of both, it means we are looking for the highest common factor. Okay, but technically instead, what do we choose about common factor? We choose factors that are common. Okay, and we choose the lowest power. But in this case, they not only choose the common and the lowest power, they want you to find out of this common factor, which is the largest perfect square, So that means I not only want to find common factor, I want something that is common and it must be a perfect square. Perfect square meaning that power must be a even power, multiple of 2. Don't think that perfect cube will be odd power. No, not true. It's just perfect cube is multiple of power, multiple of 3. Okay, but perfect square power is multiple of 2. Right? So let's take a look at 2 cubed and 2. If I want to choose the highest common factor, choose something that is common first, I only have a factor 2. And this power is 2 to the power 1. This is not a perfect square. So in this case, I cannot choose the factor 2. Next one, let us look at 3 to the power 4 and 3 to the power of A. A is larger. Okay, A is an integer larger than 4. So my highest common factor that I can choose from, I take the one that is the smaller power, which is 3 to the power of 4. 8, 3 to the power of 4. Power 4 is an even power, is a multiple of 2. Therefore, and this number is a perfect square, and it's also a common factor. Oops, sorry. Okay, and it's also a common factor. So in this case, what we choose, we'll choose 3 to the power of 4 as one of the answer. Let's move on to the next one. I have 5 to the power 1 and 5 square. I choose the common factor first, the one that is common, which is the number 5. But we notice that 5 is not a perfect square. 5 to the power 1 is not a perfect square. So the only highest common factor, the only common factor that is a perfect square will be 3 to the power of 4, right? So after we finally identify the answer, we'll write down the number, but many of you will think that the answer is 3 to the power 4. Read again the question. They say, find the largest perfect square. They did not say leave your answer as a product of prime factors. So you need to work out the value. Okay, don't waste the 1 mark. You finally got the answer already, then because of one step, you never read the question carefully, then you lose the mark. So this is 3 to the power 4. You press the calculator, number is 81. Okay, this is a new trend type of question. You'll notice that even for example, for questions, there's another one in paper 2 in standard form. It also involves algebra. They change the power in terms of algebra. So this kind of question is a new trend type of question. It may come out again, or it may involve other types of concepts involving, for example, lowest common multiple instead, right? They can also ask you to find the largest perfect square or the smallest perfect square, which is a multiple of both P and Q. So you may not know what is the correct answer, right? So just take note. Next question. This question over here, factorize this. This shouldn't be too difficult. Okay, just identify. First thing, for any number of terms, always check for common factors. Secondly, if it's 4 terms, you try to do the one with grouping. 3 terms, you try to use the cross multiplication method, or your not cross multiplication, the try and error method, the window method, or your calculator method, whichever method that your teacher have taught you. But question number 3, right? This kind of question is quite popular, so make sure you know how to do. Okay, if it's 2 terms, remember to check, is it of the form a square minus b square? Factorize it into a plus b, a minus b. So this is one of the common golden rule that you need to apply. Without further ado, I'll just explain and draw your focus on question part B. Now write this as a single fraction, that in the simplest form, that means I need to add them together. Now for the weaker students who might not be able to identify the purpose, the common thing that's down here you need to do is you will multiply everything with the same denominator. Okay, but you will have run into x cubed later on, right? So which may be a very large power. So this kind of situation, the first thing is to check, is there any denominator that can be factorized? Is there any denominator that can be factorized? So in this case, we have x squared minus 16. Think of x squared minus 16 as the pattern a squared minus b squared. So with x squared minus 16, 16 is what number square? 16 is not 16 divided by 2, square root of 16. 4 squared. 4 times 4 gives you 16. So in this case, it can be factorized as 1 plus 2 bracket 1 plus 1 minus x plus 4 x minus 4. Please do not mistake it with x minus 4 whole thing square. This is not equals to x minus 4 whole thing square. This is wrong. Okay, 2 side, 1 plus 1 minus. Now we shall change this denominator over here into x plus 4, x minus 4. Why is that necessary? Why? Because I have an x minus 4 here. So I do not need to multiply by an x squared to it. I just need to multiply with the factor that is missing. So x plus 4 is missing. I just need to add x plus 4 to both the numerator and the denominator. Please don't tell me you add 1 plus 1 together, okay? Because we have multiplied another factor to it. So put in some effort writing both the numerator and the denominator. Then next we multiply. Okay, try not to expand your denominator, keep it intact. Okay, keep it intact. Because we always want to check for common factors, keep it in the factorized form if possible. But for the numerator, I need to simplify it. So I do not have a choice. I must expand my numerator. Okay, x plus 4 plus 1. Now, some students, they may have a misconception. They think that I can cancel x plus 4, x plus 4. This is not true. Do not cancel anything. Why? Because this one over here is a plus sign. Okay, it's not something multiplied with something. It's not factors form. So in this case, this is an addition sign, plus or minus something. You cannot anyhow cancel anything from top and bottom. So simplifying this, we have x plus 5 over x minus 4, x plus 4. Okay, so please make sure you know how to do this kind of question. Okay, this is one of the more popular questions that can come up. Next question on indices. So we just need to recap the formula. When you have multiplication, a to power of n times a to power of n, the power add together. Right, so in this case, we have a to power of 3 plus negative half, okay, equals to a to power n. A few things to remember. Square root of something, this is a to power of half. Cube root of something will be a to power 1/3. Fifth root, that will be a to power 1 over 5. Okay, anything a to power 0, anything to power 0 is always 1. A to power of negative number, negative 1 is 1 over a. Just to sidetrack a little bit, what is a to power negative half? A lot of students, the common mistakes that students make, they will write it as a, oh, teacher tell me I need to switch, right? So I'll have a to 1 over a, then you go and switch this power half also become 2 over 1, which is actually not correct. Okay, the power remains the same. This negative power just means 1 over. So the negative power means 1 over. A stays the same, but it's now shift to the denominator. The power did not change. The power changed only from negative power to positive power. It is still a power half, did not change. Okay, so please don't go and flip the fraction. So in this case, if I'll further simplify it, it can be written as power half is square root. So it's 1 over square root of a. Okay, so if the question comes up like that and they ask you to write it in normal form without the index form, then you need to take note. Okay, next question. Now, next part of the question, this kind of question is teacher's favorite, exam favorite also. What students will commonly do, they will take, 16 divided by 8, something like that, or go and 16 multiplied by 8 or whichever. No, for this kind of question, always change everything, change the base number to the smallest prime factor. Please be a bit more diligent, do the working. Okay, or if not, you're very good at your times table, or you can do it using your calculator directly, no problem, go ahead. Okay, so 16, change it to 2 to the power of 4. But remember, outside that is still a power 3/4. So the whole thing have a power 3/4. Okay, for the number 8, change it to 2 to the power of 3. Remember, outside still have a power 4, right? So bracket power 4. Then remember the property a to power n bracket a to power n, the power multiply each other. So in this case, this is 2 to power of 2 to the power of 4 times 3/4. 4 times 3/4 is the number 3. Okay, then this one is 2 to the power 3 times 4, which is 3 times 4, 12. Next thing we remember, when we have division, the powers subtract each other. So it's 3 minus 12. And 3 minus 12 is the number negative 9. So K is the power. So this power will be equals to negative 9. Okay. Next one, this question, there are many different properties that you can use. Many different people have different answers. Okay, just recall all your different angle properties, especially involving parallel lines. We have corresponding angles, interior angles, alternate angles. Use them wisely. Plug them into your diagram based on information. Whatever angle you can find, write it on the diagram, okay, as much as possible. Now, since the question did not say to write the reasons clearly, so you can just find the numbers as much as possible and write down the answer. Okay. I already written my answers over here. This question is quite straightforward. Just do it diligently. Okay, I'll leave it for you to read the soft copy of the answer on your own. Can have next question. Simultaneous equation. This one is also very standard. So for questions that look like that, right, they involve a number with a subject on its own. The coefficient is 1 or negative 1. Okay, y on its own. What you can do, you can also choose to make y the subject. Then you substitute into the others. Not necessarily must always make x the subject. So you choose the one, if you want to do substitution, choose the one that has only one coefficient of 1, no numbers in front of it. Okay, if not, you want to do elimination, you can use the method that I use down here, elimination. So for elimination, there are two types. Number one, either you make x the same or you make y the same. Okay, so if you were to make x the same, so in this case, I'll multiply by 3x. No, not 3x, I'll multiply by 3, I'll multiply by 3, multiply by 3. Then I'll get the 6x plus 21y negative 13. And I compare it with 6x minus y and 4. Now, how do I know add or subtraction? Look at the sign. I made x the same. Look at the sign for x. This is plus, this is plus. Same sign, subtract. So I'll need to do a subtraction. Okay, then that will be 21y minus negative y to be equals to negative 13 minus 4. Please take note, be careful, minus negative y over here. Okay, then you can proceed to find your value for y and then find your value for x. Okay, that's if I make x the same. If I were to make y the same, okay, then this one I will do multiply by 7 over here and change this equation to 42x, 7y, 28. Then I copy the other equation over here, negative 6. Okay, so how do I know whether do I add or subtract? I made y the same. I made y the same. I look at the sign for y. Different sign at DSA. Different sign, you add them together. So this will be 42x plus 2x equals to 28 plus negative 6. Then you can proceed to find your value for x and then work out your value for y. Okay? So please take note of a few different skills down here and then make sure you practice hard for your simultaneous equation. Next question, question 15. This question is actually not a difficult question, but they want you to write explanation. So, and you have to understand a few keywords. First thing, what is the meaning of vertical? Vertical means it's standing up, right? Like the HDB block. Vertical. On horizontal ground, horizontal ground, horizontal line flat. Okay, so the ladder, where's the ladder? This is my ladder. Rests again a vertical wall on the horizontal ground. Question says, right, the safe angle for this walking this ladder is between 73 and 77 to the horizontal, 2D horizontal. So they want you with the ladder and the horizontal ground, not the vertical wall. So the angle that they actually want is this angle over here. Okay, so even if you know how to use stochastic or sine rule, whichever, but if you find the wrong angle and don't understand the question, then bye-bye. Okay, so in this case, we are looking for this particular angle. You can either use stochastic or you can use a sine rule. So if this is my angle over here, I have my adjacent, they gave me the top of the ladder is 5.8 meters. So I have my opposite and my hypotenuse, O and H, twa, ka, and so. So O and H, that will be sine. Sine of what? Sine of angle, okay, equals to opposite over the hypotenuse. So sine inverse, you get your answer. But this answer is not sufficient. Write explanation. They ask you, is it safe? Don't just put a yes, give a reason why, explain it. Since this angle is greater than this safety angle of 7, okay, the ladder is not in a safe position for use. 3 marks, 3 marks. So 1 mark for working, 1 mark for answer, 1 mark for writing the explanation. Okay. So please be more diligent during exam, write the explanation. Okay, next one, similar trapezium. Similar figures have matching have equal ratios but same angles throughout. So in order to calculate the area of trapezium, recall your formula a little bit. Half A plus B, the sum of the two parallel sides, times H, which is the perpendicular height. Okay, so in this case, you'll notice A, I do not have for trapezium, B, I do not have the two sides, the two parallel sides, right? So if I do not have the two parallel sides over here, I can use my ratio. So for ratio, please find a matching pair, the 4 cm over the 5.6 cm. Okay, then for me, I always write down the ratio. Then we can use it to find the missing sides, the A and the B. Then we can find the area of the trapezium. Okay, not a difficult question to do, just need to go through the sequence, the step-by-step problem. Okay, next question over here. Question number 17. This is not a difficult question. This is a very standard question. You must make sure you know how to do completing square. 4 marks for free. If you miss 4 marks, it's dropped by 1 grade. Please make sure you know how to do this kind of question. Okay, first thing to check. Okay, do not care about whether this sign over here is plus or minus at the first part. Okay, when we do completing square, the moment they say this means need to do completing square already, right? So when we do completing square, always follow this sign over here. Follow this sign. So this is x squared plus 6x. Definitely I'll get bracket. X squared become x plus, still plus. Follow this sign. Okay, then whole thing squared. Always remember you need to subtract this number here square. So minus 3 squared. We still have a minus 5. Bring down your minus 5. Okay, or you can use whichever method that your teacher had taught you. Just follow through. Okay, but make sure the sign follow the original question. Okay, so after I written down my values, so I managed to get my calculation. But this one over here, careless mistake. Sometimes students will take 9 minus 5, then they put negative 4, which is not correct. Okay, so please make sure you check correct, calculate correctly. So finally at this, then the question say find the value of A and the value for B. Then you compare it with x plus A squared plus B. So positive A is equals to positive 3. B will be equals to negative 14. Then we get our 2 answers. Okay, usually for this type of question, 1 mark for each answer. But once in a while, they may change the marking scheme to be 1 mark for the method, then 1 mark for the answer. So either way, you still need to write your working. Next part of question, this one say, hence. Okay, please make sure you use your previous answer. Don't care whether is your answer correct or wrong, but of course you want to get a correct answer, okay? Use the answer from the previous portion. The moment you bring it down and you equate it, you can get answer. Just a word of caution to take note. Sometimes once in a while it can be tricky. You must check the values. This one is -5. Please make sure you check the number is also -5. Okay, let's say if the question is not -5, then what do we do? For example, I sidetrack a little bit. So x squared plus 6x, maybe they give you minus 6 equals to 0. But my original question is x squared plus 6x minus 5. How? What can I do? I need to change this into the expression that I have in terms of my x squared plus 6x minus 5. If I need to do this, means -6, I probably need to do a +1. If I add 1 to make it become -5 on the right hand side, I also, in left hand side, I also must add 1 on the right hand side. Then I'll get this. Then this whole portion is the same. I'll put it whatever expression that I have into my equation, but now this one is equals to 1. Okay, there is a difference, but this is not very likely. Once in a while, sometimes it may appear. Okay, what else it can have? There might be a slight twist to this question. They can also give you x squared plus 6x minus 5 is the same, but they put a number over here, maybe say 2. Okay, for example, then what do you need to do? You notice this portion is still the same. I use my answer from the previous portion, but I bring this over to become 2 plus 14 instead of the normal 14 only. Okay, so for this kind of trick question, please take note, just in case. Observe, double check, make sure it's exactly the same. Okay. Okay, so this one just sidetrack. Okay, so if I will have this question, you should know how to do. Bring the negative over to the other side, -14. Okay, if you realize that you get your answer in equation now, when you bring it over, it becomes a negative number and you cannot square root, and yet they ask you to solve for 2 decimal places. That only means you're working in part A has an error. So better go back and check your answers. Okay, so because if we have a square root of a negative number, there will not be any answers, no x-intercept. There can actually be a case where there is no x-intercept. Why? For example, if my quadratic graph is totally floating above the x-axis, there can be such a case where there is no x-intercept. But that being said, okay, not very commonly tested in 4 and 8, but just take note lah, huh? Okay. Next question. These are the terms of a number sequence. I think you should know how to do number sequence, so I shall not explain again. I'll let you work out the number sequence on your own. Okay, check this one here just to highlight. The k term, that means they want the is equals to this, so they want you to equate the formula over here to this number, but now they want k, so change the letter n into k, that's all. Okay, and then you solve it. All right, when you take square root, there are positive or negative numbers answer, but of course we cannot have a -7 term. Okay, so therefore the answer will only just be 7. Okay, next question. Okay, this question over here, normally what I understand you all will do is to use the calculator to calculate the answer straightforward. Okay, but question here say 3 marks. Okay, so just in order to be extra careful, I go through the working with you once again. First step, this is all a frequency table, okay, with intervals. Okay, just to highlight a little bit, some basic knowledge. What is class width? Long time never study. This one is studied in Sec 3. What is class width? Class width, for example, the number. How big is that interval? This number is from 0 to 20. So the class width will be 20 minus 0, which gives you 20. So if I have another one interval, 50 less than or equals to x to 80, this one, my class width will be 80 minus 50, which is 30. So you have to take note, okay, in case if they ask you what is a class width. So just this word, class width itself. Okay, it takes the two endpoints of the value, subtract each other. So that being said, you notice over here, different class intervals have different class width, some big, some small. Please do not assume, oh, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. No, no, no. Okay, do not do a 10, 15, 14, whichever. Go individually, find the numbers. How do you find the numbers? Take the two endpoints, add them together, divide by 2. This whole values is called the mid value, or another word is called the class mark. So it comes in two names in case if they mention this and you don't know what they mean. So just telling you. Okay, so this is called either the class mark that represents the class or actually the mid value. So how do you find the mid value? Take the two endpoints, add together, divide by 2. Okay, next one, how do we find the estimated mean? For your cover sheet will tell you mean is equals to summation fx over summation f, meaning sum up frequency times x value over sum up the frequency. So which one is my x value? All these data values now are my x value. Which one is my frequency? This one is my frequency. So what do? I add on an additional column. I take the frequency times, and the frequency times the data value. So I get all these numbers over here. The question says sum up. So I sum them up. Then divide the sum of frequency, sum them up. Okay, as long as I get these numbers, I think they give 1 mark. Why is it 3 marks? They give 1 mark for finding the mid value. Then another 1 mark for your working. Whether you write this or you write this, doesn't matter. Okay, this or this. I'll just put the numbers definitely. Then 1 mark for the final answer. So that's why this question itself costs 3 marks over here. Okay? Can huh? So next question. Of course, they can ask you also part 2, calculate the standard deviation. Do you know how to use a calculator to calculate the standard deviation? Please make sure you practice, okay? Next part of the question, there are many types of extension to this kind of question. A person forgot to include one more donation and the amount is $31, okay? And she wants to update this amount, right? So you notice that this $31 is actually lesser than our mean. Lesser than the mean. So if it's lesser than the mean, that means this is a number that will now be, it decrease the value of the mean. So she expects the mean will now be less. Okay, is it true? Right? Yes, because you have to explain, since $31 is lesser than the estimated mean, it will decrease the overall value. It will decrease the mean. Therefore, Michelle is correct. Okay, other extension to this type of question, they can ask you, explain why is this only an estimated mean? Why is it only an estimated mean? Two things. Number one, we do not know the raw data. No raw values, no raw data. Number two, we use the mid value to estimate the data. Oops. Okay, to estimate the mean. They ask you why is it estimated mean. Secondly, they can also ask you why they, for example, the range is 80 to minus 0 is 80. They can ask you why is the range not 80? why the range could be not 80? Why? Number one, no raw data, but that's not sufficient, huh? Explain. When we are talking about range is the maximum minus the minimum. So you have to explain the largest value may be, because this one say less than 80 ma, okay, and then this one more than 0, but the largest value may not be 80, may be smaller than 80, or you can also say the smallest value may be larger than 0. Okay. Next thing, they can also ask you, oh, I include one more data value. It increases the range by 5. Okay. What can be possible values? What can be the possible values? Okay, what can be the possible values? New data value. So if it says increases the range by 5, that means you're going to look at either the largest data or the smallest data. Okay, so if I look at the largest data, my largest data value is 80. So if I want to increase the range and the smallest value stays the same, so my value can be in this case can be 85. Right. Next one, I can look at my smallest data. My smallest data value is 0. If I want to increase the range, make it become bigger, that means my 0 must decrease, which is -5. -5. But in this case, since these are all data values, the number cannot be negative. So in this case, can only take the number to be 85. All right. So this is one possible type of question. Or they can also ask you other questions like, explain why is this mean not a good measure of the central tendency. What happens, right? Usually the best one is the mean for average, for measure of averages. Mean followed by median, follow the last one that you actually ever use is mode. But when is it that mean is not a good representation? That happens when it has an extreme value, or you call it the outlier. Okay, the outlier, that means the one that is the odd one out, very far away from the rest of the data. So when you have an extreme value or an outlier, it will greatly affect the mean, either increase or decrease. Okay, if it's a very large value, it increases the mean. If it's a very small value, it decreases the mean. So if that's the case, under such cases, the mean will not be accurate. Then what do you need to do? You need to use the median. Okay. Right, then try not to use the mode. The other types of questions, for example, let's say if all data, there's an error that's being made, all data values are increased by 5. What happens to the mean? If all the data value increased by 5, my overall average will also increase by 5. Okay, but what happens to my range, right? Range is made up of largest minus smaller values. I'm taking a larger number plus 5 minus the smaller number plus 5. You'll notice that this bracket. You notice that this 5 and the 5, when they do subtraction, it cancel out. So for the range, it stays the same. Okay, if they will ask you for standard deviation, if you look very closely at your standard deviation formula is this, which most of you don't look at the formula anymore because you'll use the calculator directly. Not X, F. Okay, if they're asking you everything increased by 5, what happens to the standard deviation? Well, standard deviation formula also includes a subtraction. So whenever everything increased by 5 or whichever they will subtract away, the effect on the standard deviation has no effect. Standard deviation stays the same. Okay. So for this kind of questions, there are many different series that can be asked and extension. Okay, please take note of all the different possible kinds of answer. Next question, this one over here shouldn't be too difficult. It's asking for the keyword perimeter. So when you have a perimeter, remember to add the 2 radius, right? Add the 2 radius. But this question, they purposely work it backwards and they never give you the angle, they give you a number instead and ask you to find the angle. So don't worry, step by step, form the equation. Okay, so perimeter is made out of the arc length plus the 2 radius. So what you're going to do, you just minus away the 2 radius over here to find what is the arc length. Then the rest, all these are just numbers. I can multiply these, divide away this. Okay, all these are just numbers. Then you calculate, you can get your answer. So you get rid of them step by step. So the keyword is perimeter. So do remember, it's not just 22 equals to the arc length. Must include the 2 radius. Okay. Next question, number 21. This one is a point. We have point A and B, but they give you K, right? And they give you the gradient is this, for example. Newer trend of questions can also involve length. Length, and there's another type of question in the next few TYS that you can do. Length, they give you, which is the square root, they give you equals to a number. Okay, for example, then you just find, then you square this number to get the number 20 squared. Okay, to get the answer. Then you solve for quadratic equation. But in this case, they ask you to solve it in terms of for gradient instead. Okay, so for gradient instead, gradient is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, and I have the point. So for me, I will prefer k minus something, k minus something. So I'll label this as x1, y1, x2, y2, so that I get k minus something, k minus something. Okay, that's easier for me. Then you notice that they have a negative number. So for me, usually I put my negative at the numerator. I just fix it on one side. It doesn't belong to both, it belongs to one side only. So usually I put it with the numerator. Then you do a cross multiplication. Make sure you expand your sign correctly. Okay, and then you shift around, get the value for k. But now they want not just k, find the coordinates of b. B is the point 2k, so 8, 4. Okay, so this kind of variation of questions, they are the one with the length and the one with gradient, or they ask you to find possible values of n or one of the numbers, right? So we'll revise on those few questions that's inside your TYS. Next question, this question over here. Okay, this question is currently quite popular. It counts in terms of a form of a cone, or sometimes it can have a hemisphere. One of the TYS, one of the year's question was a sphere with the water, okay, in the water surface, right? So for this kind of question that you might need to know of, you must always remember to relate it to similar figures as well in order to find certain radius or certain length. Okay, but in this case, this diagram was already, everything is given for you. They gave you all the radius of the individual portions. Now, a word of caution, do not take, they want you to find the total surface area, do not take total surface area of larger cone minus total surface area of smaller cone. That is not correct, okay? That only works for volume, then you can do like that. Total surface area cannot. Total surface area, what you need to do, calculate the individual surfaces part by part. Okay, so this area over here, the one on top, this is actually a circle. So you have area of circle, pi r squared. This radius over here is 6, as given in the diagram. Secondly, you have the base area over here, the base, okay? So base area over here, this one is a pi r squared as well. Base radius is 9. Then the problem comes with how do we find the curved surface area? This curved surface area is the curved surface of the big cone. Curved surface only, not the total surface area of the whole cone, only the curved surface area only. The curved surface of the whole cone, I cut it away, remove the curved surface of the smaller cone. Then some students will take it to be pi r/l. Then they say this L is 15 minus 9. Okay, 15 minus 9. This is not correct. Do not do that, because my radius over here, have one of them is 6. The other one, oh, this is not 9. Sorry, this is 10. The other radius is 10. If I have to do this 15 minus 9, then what is this radius that I'm going to use? What is the radius I'm going to use? Is it 6 or is it 10? So in this case, this formula does not work this way. You have to take the what? The curved surface area of the bigger one, pi r/l, with its respective radius and slant height, minus pi r/l of the smaller one. Then you add the 3 values together to get your total surface area. Okay, recalling your concepts, curved surface area of cone, pi r/l. L is the square root of height squared plus the radius squared. Okay, Pythagoras theorem. Okay, moving on to the last few questions ready. Okay, this question over here is construction. You have to do it on your own. I can help you. But question here say construct. You need to see the construction arcs over here, like this two, this one. Okay, this arc. Okay, please do not just use the ruler and mark one point and measure on your own. Use the construction arc. I wrote down the step-by-step how to do. It's on the soft copy of the answer, so you can go back and refer to it. Okay. Just for your caution, some of you draw perpendicular bisector, you only draw half this way, right? Please make sure you have the top and the bottom. You need the whole line, right? So do not just draw it halfway, right? Draw the whole thing. Okay. Next part. This question, one of the last few that I must explain. Long time, it did not appear for a very long time, but the normal ones that you do are all speed time graph. But in this case, this is a distance time graph. And not only just a distance time, it's a displacement time. That means it's distance from a fixed position, fixed point, fixed location. So when you have this kind of question, reading the words and the fixed location, the fixed point is very important. 2 stations over here. One is the home. The other one is the Bukit Panjang station. Okay. And for distance time graph or displacement time graph, there are a few things that you need to take note. Number one, it's always increasing, because it's the normal distance time graph is always increasing. But for displacement time graph from a fixed point, the distance can increase or decrease, because it can be further or nearer to the fixed location. Okay. Then secondly, we can read the distances from the axis directly. So for distance, I can read the graph directly. But of course, must process from which point. Okay. Then for speed, you find the gradient. Okay, gradient. But in this case, my speed, normally speed will always be positive. Okay, or cannot have negative. That's for normal distance time graph. But now sometimes my speed over here can have a negative. This negative for the speed the negative sign or the positive sign is for the direction. Is it away from the fixed point or returning back to the fixed points? There are many different theory. Okay, so when it's go away, the distance keep increasing, so the direction will be away from home, so the gradient will be a positive gradient. But it's returning from home, from a far place coming back, okay, that gradient will be a negative gradient because it's coming back towards, so the distance decreases, right? So the gradient will be a negative gradient. For acceleration, it's almost impossible to find the acceleration from a distance speed time graph unless you find the two speeds. Then you use your physics method, change in speed over change in time. Okay, so let's begin. Ching works from his home to Bukit Panjang station. So home to Bukit Panjang, starting from home to 0, home to Bukit Panjang station. So this one over here is for Ching. Okay, then find the distance in kilometers from his home. So in this case, I can read directly when he ends at the station over here. This is ending point at the station. This number here, you will read the scale is 1,800. But read the axis for the units. This is 1,800 meters. Okay. So I have to change it to kilometers. Trick question. So notice, usually the last few questions are practical application questions. You'll need to have a lot of tricks in between. So please open your eyes big and then look very carefully at the details. He stopped to talk to a friend. So this is when he stopped, right? The distance stays the same. There's no movement. So obviously this is the portion where he stopped. Then you read the two timings and find the timing that how long he has stopped. Okay. For this one, read the scale. 5 squares represent this one how many units? 1. Let me count the units. Give me a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 squares represent 5 minutes. So 1 square represents 0.5 minutes. So this one had 5 squares, so 5 times 0.5, 2.5 minutes. So we stop for 2.5 minutes. Okay. Next one, calculate change speed for the first 20 minutes. So first 20, where's the first 20? Oh, first 20 is down here. Okay, so you take the two endpoints or the change in the distance over change in time. But they want it kilometers per hour. So my change in the distance was from 0 to 1,200. But I must change this to kilometer. Change in time, 20 minutes is actually 1/4 of an hour. So speed equals to this. Okay, remember to read the units. Next question. Cheng's sister Ziying leaves Bukit Panjang station. So she leaves the Bukit Panjang station at 10:20. So please know, some students, they draw a straight line over here. So do not draw a straight line over here. You do not need this portion of the straight line. Okay, let me just erase it away in case I confuse you. You do not need this portion of the straight line. You do not need to draw this. Okay, the starting, you start directly at 10:02. So the curve should start here. There should be no distance. Okay, and it starts from Bukit Panjang station. So start at the top. Then she returned home. Okay, but I need to know what time did she return home. It takes 21 minutes. So from 10:02 add 21 minutes over here. So 10:02 plus 21 and at 10:23. So that's why I mark 1 point, end point. Then I draw from the starting to the ending. So join it up together. Okay, so this is the starting and the ending point. So complete the distance time graph, draw already. Next one, find the distance in meters that Ziying is from the station when she passes Cheng. When she passes Cheng means the two of them meet each other. So you look for the point of intersection. So the point of intersection down here, okay? But they don't want the timing, they want the distance, right? So if I read the distance, this one is about 820, but the question say, find the distance from the station. That 820 is 820 from home. Okay, I want to find the distance from my station. My station was 1,800 meters. Minus away 820, and that give me 980. And they say meters, right? So 980 meters from the MRT station. Okay, so this is the one of the hardest question in the paper that you need to take note of. Many different skills, right? Do not leave blank. At least you try and fill out the answers. You never know, you might get a correct answer. Okay, last but not least, this one, this question, I think you should be able to do it on your own. I should not go through. It just tests your skill to read what is a tiered table and then the number of things that you need to take note of. This one is 1 to 3 tickets, 4 to 7 tickets. All right, so this is different. They are saying that if you're buying 4 tickets, then you look at this category. Okay, it's not that the first 3 is this price, then the next 4 to 7 is this price. No, they say they want to buy 4 tickets, so you buy by economy of scale directly. Okay, then the next part over here may say she buys 6 more tickets. All right, but at first she only bought 4 tickets, so she was using at this price range over here. But then she bought extra 6 more, so now you have to buy another differently. Compared to if I buy all 10 tickets at the same time, I will use a different pricing. So this is testing your knowledge on reading the table and then plugging in the different values. Okay, I shall leave you to read this question on your own, so I shall not explain too much. Should be able to do. You can read the final answer of this on my soft copy that I will send to our class chat. Okay, with that, that's the end of my this paper over here. Please redo this paper again before you go for your N-level exam. Redo this paper again before you go for your N-level examination. All right, I shall wish you good luck for your N-level examinations, and maybe I'll see you next time when I explain the other TYS paper. Bye-bye.